Today we're going to be talking about how to address the issue with your husband if you want to seek help. Are you a Catholic wife grappling with challenging in-laws? The Catholic Wives Desiring Peace podcast is your sanctuary for navigating the sometimes stormy seas of life with in-laws while being validated for what you've experienced. Join me, your host, Miriam Susan, a Catholic wife who's weathered nearly 3 decades of in-law drama, as we tackle the tough issues you're dealing with head on. Hi, Miriam Susan here, and today we're going to be talking about how to talk with your husband about your needs for help. Now, if you've listened to most of my podcast episodes, you know that I have dealt with some very challenging, demanding, controlling, toxic in-laws for my whole entire marriage. Even before we got married, there were issues. And I didn't even realize that seeking out help was an option until very, very recently. And I don't want you to be in the same situation. So what kind of help am I talking about? Well, number one, the easiest help that any of us can find, and it doesn't cost a penny, is to talk with friends. Now, not all of us have friends that we can confide in who really understand the issues that we deal with day in and day out with our in-laws. I have some very good friends who I love and I trust, but because of their own family dynamics, I don't feel like they are able to understand what I'm going through. And therefore, they might give me advice or counsel that kind of goes against what I feel is good counsel. And what I mean by that is, if you have a friend who has an amazing relationship with her parents, never really had any issues, has an amazing relationship with her in-laws, never really had any issues, those people, while definitely loving and caring individuals, they don't have the depth of experience with highly toxic, highly demanding, highly controlling people to know what it's like to try to talk to somebody, try to sit down and talk to your in-laws and have it go absolutely nowhere, or even backfire on you to where your in-laws then use what you said in that conversation against you. Or they don't know what it's like to not want your children to spend time with their grandparents because maybe they've allowed your children to watch things that are very inappropriate. Maybe they speak in ways that are not appropriate. Maybe they are careless grandparents who don't pay attention to what's going on with the kids, and the kids are actually put into harm's way. When you choose somebody to talk to about what's going on, it is important that once you start getting signals from these friends who, like I said, are well-meaning, they are loving, they are caring people, but they just don't get it, you need to start realizing that this is not the right person for me to talk to. And this is the case when you talk to a priest or a counselor or anybody. If you start getting the feeling that, okay, they're coming from a good place, they want what's best for me, however, they don't fully understand the situation, then it's time for you to maybe pull back on the things that you share about your in-laws and talk about those with somebody else. Another place that you can seek help outside of the friend is something I've already mentioned, your priest. And there are many, many, many excellent priests. At the same time, there are many, many priests who don't understand the issues that come with dealing with truly toxic personalities. And while they may offer sound advice in any other area of your life, they might not be the best people to turn to when it comes to toxic relationships. And I feel like a good priest would tell you, this is not something that I am especially familiar with. This is not something that I'm trained in offering pastoral care in. Perhaps you should seek somebody with some more experience. Maybe you should seek a professional. And again, and some of these priests have their own baggage, right? They might be the scapegoat of their family. They might be the golden child of their family. And so they might not have the impartial perspective that you would really like from a priest when you're talking about some very sensitive and serious issues. Another way that you can seek out help when you're dealing with challenging in-laws is to seek out advice from people online by watching videos, listening to podcasts like mine. There are so many outstanding resources where you can get one-sided help, right? So as much as I want to help you in my podcast, it can only go to a certain depth because it's just me talking, and I can't interact with you, and I can't offer you personalized feedback because it's just a one-way conversation. The same thing with watching videos from experts on YouTube. There are some really sound experts like Dr. Ramani, for one, who can help you understand what you're dealing with. But there's no interaction, right? Unless you somehow are able to get on her calendar and have a session with her. Another one is Dr. Les Carter. My husband has found his information extremely helpful. But again, there's only so much you can learn, and there's only so much growth you can have by just listening to videos and podcasts and reading books. Now, another thing you can do is to seek out a coach or somebody who is not necessarily a licensed counselor. Of course, you can seek out a counselor or therapist, and they have their place, right? If you have some serious trauma issues that need the expert advice of a counselor or a therapist, then absolutely, that's who you should talk to. I'm going to pitch coaching because that's what I do. So I do have a definite bias in that area. But the thing I like about coaching compared to, say, counseling or therapy is that coaching is more forward focused, and therapy tends to talk more about what has happened in the past. How can you deal with the things that have happened in your past? And so it's just a different perspective on how to tackle the same issue. So you might want a coach and a therapist if your budget allows. With coaching, I do like that it's more of a questioning to help you come up with your own answers. A lot of times therapy will also ask you questions, but you're kind of relying on that therapist to give you some answers, right? And with a coach, it's more of, okay, let's see where you are now. Let's see where you want to go. Let's come up with some kind of strategy to get you there, right? Whereas when, my husband and I, both individually and together, have sought out counselors, it's been kind of a way to help process what has already happened, finding out, where our fault lies, where, the counselor or therapist might see issues with the relationship that they can offer insights on. But it's definitely something, in my experience, where it is more looking in the rearview mirror instead of with coaching looking forward. So when you approach your husband about seeking help, one of the big things that might be a roadblock that he throws up is finances. And of course, finances are an issue. That's not something that, I can downplay. I know that going to see a therapist costs about $150 an hour. And that's for one who is a good one and not the best, but who is a decent therapist. And not everybody has that in their budget. And even if your insurance will cover some of it, a lot of the times you have to pay for it out of pocket. And then there's the time commitment of having to find childcare if you have young children, go to the office and have the appointment and then come home. And it takes a long time sometimes to get to the bottom of whatever it is you need to address in therapy, just because there's things you don't want to rush for your own health. And so you have to take your time when you're seeking out a therapist. So budget is definitely a constraint. Sometimes coaching or coaching options can be more affordable. I do have a program I'm working on right now. It's a little bit delayed, which is kind of frustrating, but we've had some sickness and issues come up with the family that have kind of forced me to put that on the back burner for a little bit. But it's going to be a much more affordable option, and I feel like it can be something that anybody with any budget can afford that will be coaching to help you address what's going on with your in-laws and helping you to form a plan for how to move forward to be able to have a more harmonious relationship with your in-laws. Another thing that your husband might feel when you bring up the idea of seeking help is that you want to blame him or you want to blame his parents. That's not really the issue, in my opinion, for seeking out therapy, seeking out coaching, seeking out any kind of help. If that's what your husband seems to be feeling, it'll be your job to assure him, no, this is not for me to find a label to put on your parents that they're awful and I never want to see them again. If you're going at it from that perspective, then I would encourage you to prayerfully consider why you're seeking out help. Blaming other people for all of your problems is never a good idea. Not that I'm saying that you would be doing that, but if your husband is coming from that perspective, assure him that, no, this is a way that I see I can try to improve myself so that the relationship can improve, so that I can try to make things better with the relationship we have with your parents. And I can't imagine any husband not wanting you to do that. If he is aware that there's already strain, if he's aware that there's already issues, and you're willing to take a step forward and say, hey, I'd like to speak with somebody about how I can make things better with your parents, how I can do whatever I can that's within my control to improve the relationship, I think that would go a long way with most husbands. So I want to keep this episode kind of short today. Really pray about what direction you feel like God is asking you to move. Again, try out talking to some friends. Not every friend is going to be the best kind of friend for talking with them about your in-law issues. Try talking to a priest. If your local parish priest doesn't seem to be a good fit, see if you can speak with another parish priest if you have one close by. Ask your friends in the local area if they know of a good priest that you can talk to. And then also there's therapists and counselors. I would highly, highly, highly encourage you to find a therapist or counselor who has experience dealing with toxic personality disorders. Even if your in-laws don't have any kind of personality disorder, it's still helpful to speak to these people because they understand toxic behaviors. And they will point you in the right direction for how to help heal any wounds that they have caused, any wounds that you feel from the relationship with your in-laws. Those would be the people that I seek out. And then finally, seeking out coaching. Again, this is my favorite one because this is what I am. This is what I do. But a coach that has experience, not just a general life coach, but I would seek out one who has some experience in this area, who has experience dealing with toxic personalities, toxic people, and how you can do certain things in your life to make that relationship better. Whatever is within your control, right? You can't control other people, so you can only control yourself and your own behaviors and the limits that you put into place. But those are some options for you. I hope that before you talk to your husband about seeking help, that you would, of course, pray about it and come at it with a very humble and gentle nature, because these are his parents, right? And you don't want to come at it with a fighting stance, right? You and your husband should be on the same team. You should both want the same thing, which is the good of your marriage and the good of your family. And I think if you come at him with that kind of spirit of humility and just wanting to help improve things, that through prayer, hopefully he will be receptive to you seeking out the help that you need. So I hope this has been helpful for you. If this has, please feel free to share with your friends, share on social media, share it with somebody who you think this would be beneficial for. So with that being said, I pray that you have a great weekend. Go in peace. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Catholic Wives Desiring Peace podcast. I have a free gift for you that I would love for you to get. It is my free scripts for toxic in-laws. It's a little PDF that you can use to give you some examples of how to speak to your in-laws about certain issues. I'd love to give it to you absolutely free. So if you head to desiringpeace.com/gift, it will be there waiting for you. Just enter your name and email so you can start using it for inspiration on how to talk with your toxic in-laws. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. Go to desiringpeace.com/gift to claim your gift now. Disclaimer. All content and information on this podcast and our website, including our programs, products, and or services, is for information and educational purposes only and does not constitute professional medical, psychiatric, or mental health advice of any kind, and does not establish any kind of professional client relationship by your listening to this podcast or use of my website. A professional client relationship with you is only formed after we have expressly entered into a written agreement with you that you have signed, including our fee structure and other terms to work with you in a specific matter. Although we strive to provide accurate general information, the information presented here is not a substitute for any kind of professional advice, and you should not rely solely on this information. Always consult a professional in the area for your particular needs and circumstances prior to making any professional, medical, or mental health related decisions.